Hi, everyone. Welcome to Question Period Rewind. I'm Donna Skelly, Speaker of the Legislative Assembly of Ontario. 1986, what a year. In Toronto, a TTC ride was 45 cents for kids and $1 for adults. Over at Honest Ed's, you could get a pair of pantyhose for 77 cents. And the population of Ontario was about 9 million people. Now, let's see what the hot topics were for the province at that time.
Now it's time for oral questions. The Leader of the Opposition.
We're sorry if the Attorney General is not used to criticism.
Question.
He'll have to get used to it if he plans to stay
Question.
here for even the one term he's going to serve.
Order. 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 Question, the Leader of the Opposition.
This is a passage that says pride goes before a fall. Be careful.
My question is for the...
Yeah, that's what you can listen to it too.
Careful, you'll hurt his feelings again. My question, Mr. Speaker, in the absence of the Minister of Agriculture, is for the Minister of the Environment. I wonder if the Minister of Environment can indicate to us, if he knows, specifically what countries are using chemicals which are currently banned in Ontario to treat crops that eventually find their way to grocery stores in Ontario.
Minister?
As the member may be aware from the statements of Kate Davies in her report at the conference on large lakes in Mackinac, one of the things she indicated was that DDT, for instance, is showing up in her view rather strangely, particularly in light of the fact that DDT, in her view, has been banned in North America. It was her estimation, and to a certain degree, I suppose one has to say it's speculation, but being a relative expert in the field, it was her estimation that very likely that would be emanating from Central America, and that through long-range airborne pollutants would be deposited not only on Ontario, for instance, but much of Canada perhaps, and much of the United States. So we are looking at, in terms of that conference, a number of areas where perhaps there are substances that are used in those countries which we do not use in North America at this time. But that was the one example, for instance, that she revealed to me that she thought that perhaps Central America was probably the source.
Order. Supplementary.
Well, the Minister is admitting that he does not know which countries are using chemicals which are banned in Ontario. My question, I don't want to hurt the Attorney General's feelings. My question to the Minister of the Environment is this.
Maybe you should ask him that.
Given the fact that you either know now or ought to have known quite some time ago that other countries were using chemicals banned in Ontario, what measures are you taking, not only to test Ontario foods, but to test those foods such as pineapples, which do contain and are used as a result of chemicals used in other countries, chemicals such as DBCP, a very dangerous chemical. What tests are you doing on imported foods to make sure DBCP is not contained in pineapples imported into Ontario?
The member may be aware that the National Department of Health and Welfare has done some considerable testing in the field of foods. And those foods would relate not only to the province of Ontario, but would relate to all of Canada. It is my view that the Department of National Health and Welfare, in conjunction with provincial ministries, should coordinate an effort to test as many of these foods as possible, because I think, as the member appropriately points out, we can look at the deposition that takes place in our province, some of which originates in our province, some of which originates outside the province. But there are other practices that are followed in other countries in the world, and depositions which come from extraneous sources in other parts of the world that might well have a marked effect. So in conjunction with the Department of Health and Welfare Canada, Ministry of Agriculture and Food Ontario, and the Ministry of the Environment of Ontario, it is our plan to test as many of these products as possible to determine, I think, as the member again shows his concern about, those which may be subjected to pesticides or herbicides which we in this country would not permit.
Final supplement.
I have read your statement today and listened to your answer, and my question to the minister is this. Is your position, are you informing the House today that you are currently doing no testing of imported fruits, even though you are aware that some foreign countries use chemicals banned in Ontario, and that you're only now, as a result of the issue raised in this House, beginning to think about doing tests on those imported fruits?
Minister?
I don't think the member can say as a result of an issue being raised in the House. I think all of us felt that, and if you had been at the conference, and I recognize that there are duties in the House for the member, but it was interesting to see the number of people on an international basis who were exceedingly impressed by Dr. Davies, essentially, for many of them, breaking new ground, and indicated that on an international basis, there would have to be testing of foods taking place by those countries where it originated and by other countries, with the cooperation either through some United Nations agency or through the World Health Organization or through other avenues. And it is our view that with Health and Welfare Canada being responsible for the health and welfare of the people of this country, that no, it's not at all. I mean, they're your friends in Ottawa, and I know that you would want to see them do that.
Order. I didn't call for a supplementary. New question, the member for Brantford.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My question is to the Minister of Labour and arises out of the very serious charges made against officials in his ministry in the Toronto Star today. I want to ask the Minister, in view of charges that officials of your ministry are intentionally thwarting prosecutions against employers, pressuring inspectors to rescind health and safety orders, inspectors being ordered to stop regular inspections of some workplaces, and sending in a second team of inspectors in an attempt to undermine the original inspectors' orders. My question to the Minister is simply this. This is what the Toronto Star says. What do you say?
Minister?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I want to acknowledge at the outset that I'm so pleased to see that party's newfound concern for the occupational health and safety of workers in the province. Mr. Speaker, I have had a chance, Mr. Speaker, to review in a preliminary way the report that was prepared by the Occupational Health and Safety Officers Subcommittee of OPSEU's Divisional Negotiating Committee. The report, Mr. Speaker, contains a number of matters which give me very serious concern and which contain in a number of occasions some very serious allegations. We are reviewing the report right now, and I intend to have had some discussions with a number of my colleagues, and I intend to have further discussions with my colleagues, and as I look at options for responding which I'll be outlining in the next short while.
Supplementary?
Well, I say to the Minister, it's all very well for you to refer to newfound concern on this side of the House. There were more prosecutions issued under the Occupational Health and Safety Act last year than there have been this year. The workers of this province were better protected under the former administration than they are under yours.
Here he is.
Question?
I say to the Minister, by way of...
What would you ask the Minister?
By way of supplementary, I ask Mr. Speaker, it is now some 3 months since representatives of the inspectors within your ministry said they were inadequately trained, they were not able to meet the tasks that were put before them. I remind the Minister again that while your request for prosecution of...
Order. Would the member place his question?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I simply ask the Minister, what are you doing to equip your inspectors to take on the manifold tasks that you ask them to do that it is clear they're not able to do?
Minister?
Well, first of all, unlike the previous government, this government is committing substantial additional resources. The Treasurer has granted an 18% increase in the budget of the Ministry of Labour, a budget which you people flatline for year in and year out. And Mr. Speaker, let me say that part of that budget is going to go and is going to be dedicated to increased and comprehensive training, particularly in the occupational health field. And one final thing, Mr. Speaker, that honourable member likes to suggest that prosecutions are down. In the month of April alone, the number of prosecution requests from the Industrial Health and Safety Branch, in the month of April 1985, the last month in which you were in office before the election, the number of prosecution requests was 3. Last month, 1986, with this government in office, the number of requests was 39.
Final supplementary.
How about on April the 4th?
That's wonderful.
Final supplementary.
Mr. Speaker, the request for information from the opposition to this government are up. That doesn't mean we get any more. I say to the Minister, the requests for prosecutions are up. Your prosecutions are down. Now, I say to the Minister, we brought, by way of supplementary, we recently brought to your attention the case of the Ministry of Health faced with a prosecution order. Your ministry reordered after 6 weeks. You permitted a second inspection to allow the situation in those ambulances to drag on for a total of 8 months. Now, if your ministry, I ask the Minister, if your minister can't solve something as simple as defective ambulance equipment, how can we expect you to adequately protect the workers of this province against hazardous substances?
Minister?
Well, Mr. Speaker, it's interesting. The honourable member has his facts wrong. There was no second inspection. There was an opportunity for the Ministry of Health to see methods by which the ambulance, the compliance could be achieved. That has not yet been achieved, but the ambulance in question, as my friend might know, I'm sure my friend from Sudbury East does, Mr. Speaker, that ambulance has been taken out of service. Mr. Speaker, I can only say, Mr. Speaker, that the honourable member from Brantford has not yet obviously learned that one of the reasons why his figures are wrong and why my figures are right is that matters going in for prosecution, not all matters that have gone in the month of April have yet come out. Not all prosecutions are underway. But I can tell my honourable friend, in the year ended April the 30th, 1986, in the 1 year ended, prosecution requests to legal from the IHSB were more than double, 195 as opposed to 79. And in the period since our new orders policy and our new prosecution policy went into effect, the number of requests is over triple what you folks are doing.
New question. The member for York South.
For the hearings. Mr. Speaker, I have a question for the Minister of Health. The Minister, I'm sure, will be aware that the OMA consultancy fee, in terms of extra bills, is roughly $6,000 an hour. That's what it's costing the people of this province. I'd like to ask the Minister, we've now had all the meetings in November, all the consultations in January, all the so-called negotiations starting in March. At the end of every meeting, either one or the other says some progress is being made, but when you finally cut the mustard, we find that nothing has changed. I'd like to ask the Minister, when is the government going to move off the dime, move off the mark, and bring in the legislation that will finally end extra billing in the province of Ontario?
Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the honourable gentleman knows that, in fact, that legislation was introduced in December. We did move off the mark, and the mark has been developed over a course of several weeks of debate in this legislative forum. It has gone out to committee. It is in committee now. I can tell you that we've had several meetings, and I think that the people of the province expect us to deal in a very sensitive and rational way with respect to negotiations and try our very best, which we have and we are doing, to come to an agreeable settlement. I have not seen the progress which I had hoped to see last night, as has been widely reported, and I can tell the honourable gentleman that I will be speaking with the Premier on his return tomorrow.
Supplementary.
That's great. Great. You're going to have a chat with the Premier tomorrow. That's your definition of action. I don't think that's going to impress the public. What the public wants to know is, are you going to bring forward the legislation that you have left in limbo yes or no? Is it now the government's plan to bring forward the legislation from committee that will finally and once and for all end the charging of extra fees costing $100 a minute, $6,000 an hour, $1 million a week to patients in this province? The delay is costing patients every minute as we speak. Why not bring in the legislation? Let's get on with it. Let's end extra billing in the province.
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, we are, and in fact have been moving to deal with this issue in a very sensitive way. Some people would like us not to enter discussions with a very important profession in this province. I think that that is something that I have rejected. I have made every effort and attempt to enter into those discussions. Very worthwhile opportunities, I think, were explored. We have not been able to make substantial progress at this stage. That's not unnatural in situations like this, but what this gentleman would like me to say, Mr. Speaker, is that this government has a position which would not entail making that very substantial effort to come to an agreement. We have made that agreement, and we, in fact, we have tried the best we can. I have a report to make to my Premier, as I had indicated to people who have asked that question. I will do that, and following that meeting, perhaps there'll be more to say.
Final supplementary.
Well, that delay is costing $144,000 to patients in the province who are going to be extra billed as a result of that delay. I'd like to ask the Minister, on May the 15th, you said, and I quote in the House, in answer to a question from my colleague, the member from Bellwoods, I'm quoting, we will reimburse those people, referring to patients, for any payments made for medical services that are insured services in this province. End of quotation. Can we take it from that comment that at the very least, the $6,000 an hour, $100 a minute that's being lost every moment you delay bringing in this legislation, that at the very least it is your intention to reimburse patients who are paying through the nose because of your inability to make up your mind as to what to do?
Mr. Speaker, that honourable gentleman speaks of my delay. It is not my delay. There are certain people who have needs for legislation to be processed through a social development committee. I recognize that. You recognize that. You have set certain deadlines, and you want to work towards those deadlines. That's fine. You explore those. Each of us has a legislative timetable, and we're working on those to deal with what is very important business in this House. We have a lot of very important and constructive business to do, and we will bring that legislation forward when we have the opportunity, obviously. The question that you asked, though, is about reimbursing people. Our position has always been that no patient in this province should have to pay extra for insured benefits. That is what that statement was designed to indicate to that member and to the people. The problem is that we're working with a situation where, in fact, the old order was that, in fact, extra billing be allowed. We are working on ways of eliminating that. The legislation is there, and I think that, Mr. Speaker, we have worked as best we could, and with dispatch and with understanding and reason, in our attempts to come to a negotiated settlement.
New question. Member for York South.
I think he said no, Mr. Speaker. I'm not sure, but I think that's what he said. I'd like to ask a question to the Minister of Labour, Mr. Speaker. The Minister said in his statement today, justifying the layoff, apparently justifying on behalf of the company at Kidd Creek, said that efforts are being made by resource companies to become more competitive through cost reductions. That was his justification for the layoff. I wonder, is the Minister aware, or was he aware when he rose to make the statement, that Kidd Creek made a profit of $5.5 million in the first quarter of 1986, which is a dramatic improvement over 1985, where they made $13.4 million and $16.8 million in 84. Are you aware of those facts, and how would you have made that statement if you had any understanding in terms of what the profitability of Kidd Creek is?
Minister?
Well, Mr. Speaker, the comment in terms of the profitability of companies, the competitive position of resource companies wasn't aimed specifically at the Kidd Creek situation. I don't intend, Mr. Speaker, to stand in this House and to attempt to justify the decision that was announced by Mr. James yesterday. We intend on this side of the House to have discussions with Mr. James and indeed with the workers to see whether these changes can be alleviated. Those discussions will take place with both myself and my colleague, the Minister of Northern Development and Mines. We do not accept, Mr. Speaker, that that these layoffs necessarily have to and ought to take place, and we have already been in contact with Mr. James. He is out of the country until next week. We intend to see him immediately upon his return. Mr. Speaker, there are a number of options which we believe still may be open to us, and we intend to explore those options with Mr. James in as comprehensive a way as we can.
Supplementary?
Well, I'm sure that in your discussions with Bill James, going in there legally nude, you have no power, no capacity, Bill James is going to laugh in your face. That's what he's going to do, because you don't have any power to tell him any different. I'd like to ask the minister, are you aware of the fact that after Falconbridge bought Kidd Creek, it for roughly $615 million, it increased its debt costs by well over $30 million, and that what in fact is happening at the workers are being laid off and are being fired in order to pay the bank, which Bill James and his swashbuckling friends at Falconbridge have incurred because of their decision to swallow Kidd Creek? Are you aware that that's what's really happened in this situation?
Well, I'm aware. I'm not aware of all the details under which the purchase was made of Kidd Creek. Kidd Creek. But I say again to my friend, the leader of the third party, that it's not the intention of this minister to stand in the House and to justify the closure or the layoffs. Mr. Speaker, the attempt, my statement today was simply a statement to the House indicating the course of events as they had transpired in the last 24 hours, to bring the House up to speed in terms of the level of the layoffs, and to indicate, Mr. Speaker, in a general sense, the government's interim response, which is to write to the CEOs in Northern Ontario to indicate to them that we wish to have, for now, in a voluntary way, some earlier indication of potential problems. I might say to the leader of the third party, Mr. Speaker, that we are continuing to look at more permanent solutions.
Final supplementary.
Mr. Speaker, the minister has two gears, two speeds, neutral and reverse. Those are the speeds which he demonstrates in the House every day. I'd like to ask the minister simply this question: why don't you have the power to justify a decision? Why don't you have the power to force a delay in layoff announcements when they're made? Why didn't the Minister of Industry and Trade know the answer to our questions yesterday when we asked him specifically about Kidd Creek? Why don't you have the answers to any of those questions?
Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I can only say to the leader of the third party that the government is looking at changes which we might undertake, changes which have been discussed, and I acknowledge to the leader of the third party, look, we are actively looking at changes which we might take, which would either give us additional notice time or move to a form of justification of one kind or another. I might say that while my friend wants to suggest that this party is no different than the previous government, I reject that, Mr. Speaker. The difference between this government and the previous government is that government, when they were in power, never looked at the options open to government. This government is, and is doing so on an active basis.
Order. 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 New question. The Leader of the Opposition.
Speaker, my question is for the Minister of the Environment. Some months ago, when the Minister first discovered there was some dioxin in the drinking water well, there's more backbenchers in this party than in your party, I can tell you that.
Or there'll never be in your party.
Order. 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 Once again, I'll just wait until there's order. New question.
My question is for the Minister of the Environment. Some months ago, when the Minister of the Environment first learned of dioxin in drinking water, he asked for an immediate meeting with the two opposition party leaders, gathered a lot of staff in a secret meeting in the cabinet room to share with us that concern, and then called a massive news conference to tell the world about the problem, together with some of the experts from the ministry, to deal with it and explain the extent of the problem. Now we learn that the minister became aware some weeks ago, together with the Minister of Agriculture, of the possibility that there was dioxin in our food. My question to the minister is, why did you participate in that cover-up? Why didn't you call an immediate press conference, as you did with water, explain the extent of the problem, have all the scientists, and follow your government's policy of no walls, no barriers, no secrets?
Minister?
As the member would be aware, fully aware I'm certain, the information that he is referring to is not information of the Ministry of the Environment of Ontario. When we talked about dioxin in the water, you will recall, when we talked about dioxin in the water, we had found dioxin in the water, in the raw water supply before. What I indicated that in measuring in parts per quadrillion, we had found for the first time, and don't pretend it hasn't been there for years, we had found for the first time ever in our detectable limits dioxin in drinking water. Now that was the Ministry of the Environment doing the testing, and we provide that information. The report to which the member is referring is not a report of the Ministry of the Environment. In fact, it is a report by Dr. Catherine Davies. It is a report which is done for the International Joint Commission. It is a report done for the International Joint Commission. Well, it is. It's a report done...
Order! 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 Interjections are out of order. They're not supplementaries. Order. Supplementary.
Is the position, therefore, of the minister, as he outlined his position, that if the Ministry of the Environment, his own ministry, finds some dioxin in water or food, he will immediately tell the people of Ontario? But if information comes to him from a source other than his own ministry, he's not going to tell the people. He's going to sit on it for a number of weeks, do some internal studies, and then if he, the minister, is satisfied that it is then time to tell the public, then he and his friend, the Minister of Agriculture, then will tell the public. What is the difference between the two cases?
This is completely mischaracterizing it, and he knows it. When we received an indication, because of this report, that there were findings of dioxin, we immediately, upon the request of the Ministry of Agriculture and Food, did a test. That is correct. The leader of the third party recognized that. Did a test as a peer reference. As soon as we did our tests, we got the results yesterday. You had the results sitting here in the House. The Minister of Agriculture provided those results to you. Now, the Ministry of the Environment is responsible for providing, and we will, on any occasion, the information that is available. Now, no, not because you asked. Not because you asked. The member knows.
Order! 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 Could I remind all members that interjections are out of order, and once again, order! A recess may be in order. I would remind members of 19A, would you please address your question or response through the chair? Does the minister have any further comment?
Of the opposition, as I have, there are a number of people at a number of times who are doing various studies and have findings. I cannot confirm whether these are accurate findings or not accurate findings. And these people, as I say, are commissioned by the International Joint Commission, and there is an undertaking that they release their results. In fact, as the member would likely know, this particular paper which was presented to the conference is a paper which belongs to Kate Davies. The information is information which she will stand by, and the Ministry of the Environment, upon receiving information of this kind, does confirmation testing and then reveals its results. That has been the policy of this minister, and it will continue to be the policy of this minister. I can't I'm not responsible for releasing results.
Order. 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 I guess I have to remind the members that it has taken 6 minutes for a question, a response, a supplementary, and a response. It's my job to make certain as many members as possible can ask questions and receive reply. New question. The member for Lakeshore.
Mr. Speaker, I think it's important that the Minister of the Environment make it very clear who was speaking for the government, either the Minister of Agriculture yesterday or him today. We heard yesterday that the Ministry of the Environment had been asked to test fruit. It has been testing apples since we first heard there might be a dioxin problem. The test results have not revealed the same kind of results the Toronto study revealed. If that's in fact the case, can the Minister tell us why he has not tabled those results and what other testing he's done and what results he's found in any extensive testing?
Okay, the story is straight. In all due respect to the leader of the third party, the story is straight. The Minister of Agriculture and Food revealed that yesterday. Now, the results that I have here today come from, they're directed to Dr. Frank, who is the director of the Agriculture Laboratory Services Branch, Provincial Pesticide Residue Testing Laboratory, and it comes from R.E. Clement, Ph.D., Senior Scientist Dioxin, Mass Spec Research.
May the 21st, May the 20th.
The date is May 20th, 1986. Now, right. That's
Order. 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 Would the member take his seat? Order. Supplementary.
Mr. Speaker, perhaps the Minister can explain why there were no results until the 21st of May 1986. We had the storm warning report last November. The Minister of Agriculture told us yesterday that it was several weeks ago that he was advised of the findings in the Kate Davies study. What has the Ministry of the Environment been testing? When was it doing the testing? And when will the results be tabled in this House for us all to see?
As I have answered to the Leader of the official opposition, as soon as the Minister of Agriculture and Food made the request to the Ministry of the Environment, we immediately began testing of the apples that were requested in order that, because the Ministry of Agriculture and Food, the member would know, their laboratory does not have the ability to test that. Our laboratory, the Ministry of the Environment, does have that. Therefore, we did the testing as soon as requested, and the results are as the member indicated yesterday.
New question. The Leader of the Opposition.
Question for the Minister of the Environment. Firstly, this is not a question, a request. I would trust the Minister, in keeping with his policy, would now send us immediately, not after question period, a copy of the test results which he has referred to. My question, would you have someone send it over? My question for the Minister is this. Is he telling the House that several weeks ago his ministry was put on notice that there may be a problem with dioxin in apples, and that the results, the test was completed coincidentally yesterday, the very day the issue was raised in this House by the opposition party?
Minister?
I think, as the member is aware, on a number of occasions, and the member for Lakeshore alluded to this, on a number of occasions. First of all, we had storm warning, which was issued by the Federal Ministry of the Environment and then withdrawn by the Federal Ministry of the Environment. And then we had the Royal Society, in conjunction with its counterpart in the United States, talk about toxic rain. And then we had the Canadian Environmental Law Research Association talk about toxic rain. And then the Minister of Agriculture asked to discuss with Dr. Doug Hallett, who was the former chief scientist, senior scientist with the, Federal Ministry of the Environment until he departed from that some time ago. And when we got that request, I believe it was 3 weeks ago, from them to do the testing for the dioxin, we did the testing for the dioxin in those apples so that we would have that information. As soon as we had the results of our dioxin testing, they were revealed. They were revealed by the Minister of Agriculture yesterday.
Order. 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 Supplementary. Leader of the Opposition.
I want to say to the Minister of the Environment, who still hasn't revealed that information, that in question period on Tuesday, yesterday, the Minister of Agriculture was here. If the test was completed before 2 o'clock, he could have risen and made a statement to this House, as you have promised to do on every environmental problem. He did not. He didn't release it during question period yesterday when we asked the question, and the Minister of the Environment didn't make a statement today releasing that information, and we still haven't got it.
That's right.
As of 3:10 this afternoon, you haven't given it out.
Cover up.
My question to the Minister is this. If when you were alerted several weeks ago that there might be a problem with apples and other foods in Ontario, and if, as you acknowledged earlier in question period today, you knew that other countries were using dangerous chemicals...
Order. 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 I asked twice for a supplementary question. I did not hear a question. Therefore, I'm going to ask for a new question. New question. Order. 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 New question, the member for Lakeshore.
Mr. Speaker, I asked the Minister of Agriculture yesterday if he would table the document. It appears to be the same one the Minister of Environment has. I hope it will be tabled today. But my question is a more general one. I'd like to know from the Minister of the Environment, does the fact that despite the very specific reports we've had today, his statement is very general in talking about the report he had released earlier on dioxins, does the fact that he's released and boasted about this report on dioxin ingestion standards indicate that he is contemplating setting standards for this province that would apply to the ingestion of dioxin by water or by food?
In fact, as the member will know from that document, which was released several months ago now, in fact, our ministry had been working with several other bodies to develop standards, because we are always requested to do so, standards for dioxins and dibenzofurans. And as a result of that, our discussions, I think, with the World Health Organization, there was some peer review, there was some consultation with the federal people, that document was produced. I think the member would agree with me, and as she has said so consistently, I'm certain that we would not want to see any of these substances in these foods or in water or anything we would consume. The fact is, however, that they are present. Sure, they're not present in the largest quantities, but they're present. And the fact that they're present at all should be a matter of great concern.
Order. Supplementary with order. Final supplementary.
Well, given that all these substances are present, given that extensive testing is revealing the presence of these substances,
period, supplementary.
Can the minister tell us why he has taken no action against the 43% of industries surrounding the Great Lakes that are exceeding even his minimal guidelines, and when we can see some action to reduce the amount of these contaminants from all sources within this province?
Minister.
Well, that is exactly, of course, the avenue of action that both Dr. Hellett and Dr. Davies have advocated, particularly Dr. Hellett on many occasions. And, of course, that is the route that we feel should be followed. That is why, for instance, we have at the present time the changing of a Regulation 308. As the member would know, Regulation 308 deals with emissions coming out of stacks. The practice in the past has been to do this in context of the point of impingement as opposed to what is actually coming out the stack, and not really taking into account appropriately the total loadings into the atmosphere. Second, we are in the process of developing a new water regulation which would deal with the effluent going into the water, one that I would like to have seen in effect 10 or 12 years ago, but it wasn't. We're now in that process of developing that, and it will contain, of course, very extensive monitoring, followed subsequently by abatement. Again, it will take into consideration...
Order. Order. New question. The member for Leeds.
Speaker, my question is for the Minister of Consumer and Commercial Relations. Could he, could he inform the House what action he's taken on behalf of Ontario's consumers to ensure that appropriate, adequate tests are being carried out for dioxin, DDT, and other contaminants in baby food?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as the questioning and answers have been going on all afternoon, the actual direct responsibility for food testing is that of the federal government under the Health Act and under the Food Act, and that is not a responsibility of this ministry.
Supplementary.
Mr. Speaker, apparently this minister is too busy negotiating for shopping malls to register an interest in consumer safety. He didn't mind shouting to anyone who would listen about potentially tainted wine. Will he now ensure that his cabinet colleagues take whatever action is necessary to protect Ontario's consumers?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the problem is one that we have addressed to the federal government on a general nature, not on a specific nature as far as baby food is concerned, but just to reply to him, when it comes to wines, that is a direct responsibility of ours because we market it. When it comes to these other products, just because we don't do it doesn't mean that we're not concerned about it. Just that there are certain responsibilities that belong to the federal government. That happens to be one of them, and we have certain responsibilities.
New question. The member for Sudbury East.
I have a question to my friend Russ over there, the Minister of Labour. In November, the minister talked about tough directives for prosecutions for violations of the Occupational Health and Safety Act. And in today's report in the Star, it indicates that the minister's inspectors are not getting any support. And if I might just quote one sentence, Mr. Speaker, in our view, there is a resolute reluctance on the part of this minister's senior administration to initiate prosecution that inspectors have required, and an equal reluctance to successfully prosecute when these have been undertaken. When's the minister going to get serious and clean out that swamp down there and get serious about laying charges in a way that are going to carry and protect the workers of the province?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I'm sure my honourable friend who has seen the ministry's prosecution policies would agree with me that in carrying forward those policies vigorously, we would be entirely serious. I have had an opportunity, as I said to the House earlier, Mr. Speaker, to look at the contents of the report fairly briefly. I can only say this to my honourable friend, that we are reviewing the report on an intensive basis, and that I expect to be in a position to advise the House by the beginning of the week at the latest as to what actions we'll be taking in responding to the report. I'm sure the honourable member, Mr. Speaker, would understand that I wish to discuss these matters with the Premier on his return.
Supplementary. Is the minister aware that at Campbell Red Lake, in this year alone, there have been 2 fatalities, one in January, one in March. Henry Hens died of suffocation in January. Ingo Budwig died in March, and your own policy indicates that within 13 weeks, your ministry will decide whether to prosecute or not. It's according to your own policy. Can you tell me why, to this time, there has been no decision to prosecute in the first case, which is now in its 18th week since the fatality, and in the 12th week for the second one? When are you going to get serious and realize that your own staff are taking you to the cleaners?
Mr. Speaker, I want to share with my honourable friend and with the House a concern that I have and that I believe is probably true, and that is that because of the new policy, we have been loading on to the legal branch of the ministry very large amounts of additional work. As I pointed out in an earlier response, in the month of April alone, we sent from Industrial Health and Safety to the legal branch 13 times more requests for prosecutions than we did in April of the previous year. We have not yet, we have had some increase in the number of people working in the legal branch. Mr. Speaker, we have not yet had the kind of increase that may well prove necessary. I have asked and did some 10 days ago for the director of the branch to indicate to the deputy and to myself whether there is sufficient manpower to deal with all of these matters in the kind of timely way that I know, Mr. Speaker, the honourable member and I would wish them dealt with.
New question. The member for York East.
To the Minister with responsibility for senior citizens. As you're aware, Mr. Speaker, my riding of York East has a very large population of senior citizens, and I have heard from them that their primary concern is being unable to stay in their own communities and in their own homes for the longest period possible. My question to the Minister is, what has this government done to date to enable those seniors in York East to stay in their communities and to stay in their own homes?
Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I would like to observe that it's very pleasant to see our new colleague, the member from York East, showing such sincere interest in her constituents. Mr. Speaker, prior to the members joining us, in January of this year, I had the pleasure of announcing some new initiatives of this new government, and they came as a result of the review that I had made of senior services in the province, Mr. Speaker. Basically, what we announced in January was that we would be spending $11 million on home support services, and beyond that, my colleague, the Minister of Community and Social Service, announced a further program involving $60 million for the long-awaited Integrated Homemakers Program. Thank you.
Supplementary. Order. Order.
The opposition don't care about the seniors.
Order. It's your time you're wasting. I'll wait. Supplementary, the member for York East.
Mr. Speaker, I understand that the new Integrated Homemakers Program is presently in the pilot project stage. My question to the Minister is, when will the evaluation of that pilot project take place so that other communities, including my community in York East, will be enabled to take part in that program?
Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, that's again a very good question, because there are implications for not only the citizens of York East, but for the citizens of the other communities in this province. And it is our intention, Mr. Speaker, that the evaluation be immediate, and that additional centers be brought on stream not only in this coming year, as was indicated in the Treasurer's budget, but in the succeeding 5 or 6 years, so that ultimately all of the communities in the province will benefit from that program. So the evaluation will begin immediately.
New question. The Leader of the Opposition.
Question for the Minister of the Environment. Yesterday his colleague said, quote, our tests have definitely indicated that the amounts of contaminants found in food, not only of dioxin but also PCBs, are well below the standards set by the Department of National Health and Welfare and well below the standards set by the rest of the world. Our tests definitely, he said, have indicated. I now have the copy of the report which we finally got from you a moment ago. And the covering letter says as follows: because samples such as apples have not been previously analyzed by our laboratory, the precision and quantitative accuracy of the data are not known. how does the minister reconcile this report from his own lab with the remarks of himself earlier today and the remarks of the Minister of Agriculture yesterday?
I'll just read this section that the minister has made, members made reference to. Because samples such as apples have not been previously analyzed by our laboratory, the precision and quantitative accuracy data are not known. Okay. As you may or may not be aware, well, and the former Minister of the Environment, member for Sarnia, might inform you of this. Up until, correct me if I'm wrong, the member for Sarnia, up until about 2 years ago, there were not protocols for the testing of dioxin in water, but those have been developed, up till 1984? Is that correct? And we have not...
He doesn't know. You don't know. He doesn't know. He never knew.
That was the case.
He never knew.
And
he never knew.
As the member would be aware, because of this is relatively new, the protocols have not been easily developed for the testing of dioxin in food either. And so that is a procedure it has to go through, which is why one can't be as precise as one wants to be if one is a scientist in this regard. The development of the protocols are very recent in regard to the testing of dioxin in food. For instance, how an apple is crushed, or what part of the apple you test for, and so on.
Supplementary.
The minister of Agriculture tried yesterday to reassure everyone with regard to apples that there was no problem based upon the work of your ministry. Your ministry has now done a study where, by their own admission, the precision and quantitative accuracy of the data are not known. Now, how can the minister take the position that he found out 3 weeks ago about the problem, that he hasn't tested any other products, that he isn't yet able to reassure the public with regard to these products tested, and his lab can only by today report to the public that they can't say very much because the accuracy is not known? How can the minister defend his position given the seriousness of this problem?
I think that could be said of any of the testing that has been done, whether it's done by the Ministry of the Environment, for instance, or other people who have done testing, other labs that have done testing. The precision in these particular cases, for instance, one lab that would do testing, one specific lab, may do one test and find one result. The same lab might do another test and find a result which is significantly different than the previous test. This is why, for instance, that Dr. Davies said, that what is most required at the present time are two things. The first is further extensive testing to confirm or not confirm the results of any testing that have been done so far. And second, a determination to eliminate and reduce the sources as they exist in this province, this country, or in the world.
Order. Order. Again, I will remind the members that the last question and response, the supplementary response, took close to 6 minutes. The new question, the member for Oakwood.
Thank you very much, Mr.
Order.
Speaker.
Order. Order. Point of order.
On a point of order. Mr. Speaker, I think it should be done during question period. We're at an important stage of question period. I have a point of order, and I would like to express to you our concern. We are dealing with one of the most gravest situations. It's a technical matter. You've chosen this time to cut questions short, to cut off technical data.
Order. 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 I'll explain following question period rather than taking the time. Why? Order. Order. New question, the member for Oakwood.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, my question is to the Minister of Citizenship and Culture. and relates to the cultural industries and free trade. I would like to ask the Minister, she's aware, of course, that Richard Parker, a top advisor to U.S. Trade Commissioner Representative Clayton Uter, labeled Canadians as an emotional lot because we want to defend our country. He further stated that the USA will never agree to a free trade pact unless Canada agrees to withdraw laws protecting broadcasting, book publishing, and other cultural industries. Now, the Premier's response was a very weak response. Doesn't the Minister of Culture not agree with me that the weak response of the Premier clearly indicates a softening of the position he took in November of last year when he said, and I quote, "It is my view..."
Order. Order. Minister.
My indication in observing what the Premier of the province has given us his commitment to cultural industries, Mr. Speaker, is that we will never allow those products and those industries to be put on the bargaining table. And in connection with any of our talks with Minister Mass and other ministers, we have made it quite clear that those products and that expression of our cultural identity are not up for grabs. My impression is that Mr. Reisman is waffling and that this province is digging its heels in terms of not allowing cultural industries anywhere on the bargaining tables. But if you'd like to expand your question, I certainly can respond.
Supplementary.
Well, it is clear, Mr. Speaker, that what the government of the province of Ontario has been saying, the federal government has dismissed it and considers it to be a total failure of your attempt. Since that attempt has failed, that is to keep the cultural industry off the negotiating table, what other steps will your government take to protect the cultural interest of our province and of our people?
Minister.
I don't believe that the Premier of this province is going to back up at all on his stand on protection of the cultural industries. What this minister has done in that regard is to effectively lobby across provinces to make sure we have an effective block against the lobby and protectionist stand, Mr. Speaker, in the states. I do not and cannot believe that this province and this country will allow anything as sacrosanct as our cultural expression to be up for grabs. What I perceive from Mr. Reisman is certainly observable signs of waffling, and I know that this government and this ministry will pick him up on that.
New question. The member for Essex South.
Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, all of this week, my constituency office has received calls on a regular basis in regards to statements.
Order.
In regards to statements made by a member of the opposition. Therefore, I would like to place a question to the Minister of Housing. Can the Minister of Housing inform the House very clearly and emphatically as to the process which must be carried out in order to pass the rent review legislation that we so desperately need in this province, which will protect tenants?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I think that the member is referring to Bill 78. As you know, that Bill 78 has already got its first reading, and the second reading is coming forth, where we have asked the Landlords and Tenants Advisory Committee, who had presented a report to me, and that has now been very extensive. We have reached where we have read that thing extensively, and there are amendments that will be done to Bill 78, and at the moment it's going through the process, and I would anticipate that it will be in the House by the early part of June, maybe the first or second part of June. I hope so.
Supplementary.
Well, I'm very glad to hear, Mr. Speaker, that the member of the opposition who made those public comments is in fact incorrect. I would like to further ask the minister, in regards to the retroactivity of this important bill, if we in fact are going to have the 4% retroactivity, or if that's one of the things that the minister is still considering, and what advice have you received from your landlord and tenant group on this particular matter?
Minister.
Mr. Speaker, when we announced that about the 4% in Bill 77, when that was approved, it was retroactive. We've also stated that when Bill 78 comes out, it will be retroactive. Not a matter of consideration. That's the position that this government has taken.
New question, the Leader of the Opposition.
To the environment. The study he sent over to us says, quote, "It is not known whether the xenon data," that's the data from the other study, "are comparable to the data in Table 2, since the xenon results are for a fruit basket composite, while the data in Table 2 are for apples only." Given that and the statement in the end of the summary, which says the available database is too small to make any general conclusions regarding average levels of dioxin found in food, is the minister prepared today to support the assurances of the Minister of Agriculture given in this House yesterday?
Minister.
From the information that we have provided to the House through this document, and I'm sorry, I thought it had been provided yesterday in the House, but from that information that we have from our lab results, I think that they would, by and large, confirm what the Minister of Agriculture has had to say. I think what's important, I think the member identifies this, is that we are looking at one particular product, and I think the member would understand that there would be a need for a wider number of tests. We were asked by the Ministry of Agriculture and Food to test for the apple because it had been identified, I believe, as the one which had shown in the Davies report to have the most or the highest reading of dioxin. So did the apple. But I think the member would agree with me, certainly he has stated in the House, that the need for a testing of a wide range of products certainly would provide a better base of information for all of us. And this is what Dr. Davies has had to say.
Time for all questions has expired, and I would like to inform the members, because of the previous point of order, that I've tried my best to make certain that as many members of this House have the opportunity to ask questions and receive responses. In the past, we've been able to get up to about 45 questions and supplementaries, which mean that actually 90 members get on their feet within the hour. However,